Hi, AP Psych friends. Welcome to another edition of Psychology from My Kitchen. I'm Mrs. Sarah Ryan, and today we are continuing in Unit 10, Motivation, Emotion, Stress, and Health. Notice my camera's still off because I still have shingles all over my face, but that's actually really appropriate in our topic for today because we are talking about stress. So if I were right in front of you and I asked you to raise your hand if you have experienced a low amount of stress this school year, I'm going to have a feeling that very few of you are going to raise your hands. Whereas if I asked if you had a moderate amount of stress or a whole lot of stress, I'm guessing that a lot more hands would be shooting up. So stress is an inevitable part of being a human being. That in talking about what motivates us, one of the things that we've recognized in the past couple of our videos is that as human beings, we really dislike being stressed. And that one of the things that motivates us is trying to get rid of stress, that to get us out of stressful situations. But here's the thing, stress really isn't all bad. That stress can actually be something that is incredibly helpful to us in motivating us towards getting certain behaviors done or certain behaviors taken care of. Where stress becomes a problem is when it becomes this really dominant element of our life because it can have a significant effect on the body's overall health. I know this because literally in this moment, part of the reason why I am experiencing shingles is because I've gone through some really stressful stuff in my life. And so this is actually how all of that works. So we know that when the body is stressed out, it's going to trigger the sympathetic nervous system. And when it does that, it's going to make your cardiovascular system, your heart, and the pumping of the blood through your body and things like that, that's going to be working a little bit harder than it's supposed to. This also messes up with your digestive system because we know that the sympathetic nervous system slows down digestion because all of your blood and energy is going towards your muscles because you're in that fight or flight kind of experience. So all of these things have an effect, right? This is all because of stress. I have a picture of Obama here because he's very notable in that when he was in office, you can see this age progression that has happened that, and more significantly, that his hair went really, really gray in those 8 years that he was in office. And that is a direct effect from stress, is that we actually lose the melanin in our hair and that it can make us start going gray. There's an increased amount of wrinkling of the skin, that all of that is because of stress. So the person that we really need to talk about in terms of stress is a man by the name of Hans Selye. And Hans Selye is noted for identifying something called general adaptation syndrome, or we might just refer to it as GAS, and not the flatulent kind. So general adaptation syndrome is actually a whole process of what we go through in experiencing stress and how stress can become bad for us because we're going through general adaptation syndrome, as opposed to dealing with our stress in a healthy and manageable way. So Hans Selye is talking about how we are always attempting to retain homeostasis, that our body likes us to be stable, that it's making use of our hormonal system and our sympathetic nervous system for those fight or flight responses when we feel threatened. And so when we feel threatened, the body's response is always that they want to deal with it as fast as possible. and that's where the sympathetic nervous system gets triggered. But then it's also going to trigger your endocrine system, which happens a little bit later, but that if the stressful event passes and that can quickly be resolved, the parasympathetic nervous system gets to kick in, it gets to calm you back down, everything will be fine. What general adaptation syndrome is telling us is that we're going to go through these three major stages of gas and that they can have a negative impact on our overall health. So the first stage of general adaptation syndrome is known as the alarm stage. The alarm stage is when your body is physically aroused by the sympathetic nervous system because there's something in your life that is in fact alarming. So there's something that has happened that is stressful to you, whatever that might be. It could be preparing for a big project. It could be where your physical life is threatened. All kinds of things could trigger this alarm stage, but it's tripped the sympathetic nervous system. So your heart rate is increasing, your pupils are dilating, your digestive system is slowing down, your bladder is relaxing, and it makes you feel like you have to pee. Okay, alarm stage. Now, the next stage of gas is known as resistance. So this stage isn't as strong as alarm. It's not like as, right, that sympathetic nervous system really going through the roof. But in the resistance stage, you have enough energy to persevere through this stressful situation that you've been going through. So it's what's energizing you, it's what's motivating you to overcome the stressful situation. It is pushing you through. Now, the issue, of course, is the length of time that you spend in the resistance stage. Because if you're in this stage for a really long time, remember, what goes up must come back down. And so if your sympathetic nervous system and your endocrine system have been working in overdrive to push you through, it's starting to deplete the energy of your body. And that this can lead you actually into stage 3, in that exhaustion stage. So you're beginning to lose your ability to combat that stress, and it can make you prone to other types of health problems because of a weakened immune system. So I mentioned how it's totally appropriate that I'm talking about this right now because I mentioned how I have shingles. So shingles is a virus that has been inside of my body since I was a little kid getting chickenpox when I was 6 years old. 30 years later, I have now experienced a really stressful event in my life. The past 2 months, I've had a lot of things happening that I don't need to get into all those personal details, but there's been a lot going on. And because of that, my immune system is weakened, and it actually re-engaged the virus that's been living in my nervous system since I was 6 years old and had chickenpox. And thus, the shingles virus has exploded all over my face as it is actually following the nervous system in my face. That's actually a direct result of general adaptation syndrome. That in my body's attempt to get me back to homeostasis, because it's pushing me through the stressful event that I'm in, that resistance stage was taking so long that it weakened my body to not be able to fight off infection, reawakening viruses that are in my body. That is part of general adaptation syndrome. So when we talk about stress being good, stress being bad, stress is bad when it overtakes your life and that you go through this exhaustion stage that can have a negative impact on your overall health. However, small amounts of stress that motivate us, things like having a firm deadline to get your work done, or having the stress of a performance or a big game, that those kinds of stressful events can actually be good for us as they're motivating us towards accomplishing a particular goal. When stress is constant, when it is something that a person's not able to deal with, that's where those negative impacts on the body can happen. And that, as for me, you get shingles virus all over your face. So next time, we're going to be focusing on emotion. Until then, thanks for joining me. Have a great day.